My name is Robert Glen, G-L-E-N. Myself and my partner Sue live in the bush, we always have, studying animals from life, not using photographs. And that way we're getting the essence of the animal direct to you, and it just gives something different, because you're understanding how the animal breathes and lives and looks and all kinds of things. When I was a child, I can remember as far back as 6 years old being interested in birds and anything that moved around, and living in Nairobi in Kenya as I did. That's where I was brought up. I was taken on a safari for 2 months with two hunters that I knew. I was nearly 15, and their client was the Shah of Persia's brother, and the princess and her sister and her husband. His name was Abdurreza Pahlavi, and His Highness. And so I went on the trip, had a great time, did what I had to do, and then at the end of the trip, the prince said to me he wanted me to go to Iran to stay in the palace. It was before they were all deposed. Stay in the palace and make a collection of Iranian birds for him to put in his trophy room for 6 months. At the same time, I was accepted in Denver, in Colorado, for a 3-year apprenticeship with a very famous taxidermist and animal sculptor called Coleman Jonas. So my decision had to be go to Iran and stay in a palace with a prince, and then collect birds for 6 months, or do what I was really being pulled to, is my art in Denver, which is what I did. And then in 1969, I said, I'm going to go on with my artwork. And I was making animals, carving animals in clay, and in making them in resin and stuff like that. And then I decided in '69 to make something in bronze. And so I left everything else and I just went full-time on that. And so I sold a car that I'd made an elephant, not very big, and I sold a car, a Volkswagen of all things. Didn't get much money, but it was enough to get me to London by plane, take my elephant to be cast in bronze at a foundry that I'd been introduced to, get back in a plane and go back home with the elephant when it was ready, and that was the end of my money. And it just so happened that a lady was on safari with a friend of mine in Kenya, saw the unfinished model, and said she wanted the first one. I make 10 in an edition. She wanted the first one. Well, it ended up that she was in London at the same time I arrived with the elephant, saw the elephant finished in clay, and then said to me, I think you might need this. And I was terrified to ask for a deposit. So she just gave me a bit of paper, which was a check for the full amount, $3,000. Well, I nearly dropped the elephant, you know, I couldn't believe that. Anyway, so that was it, and that got me rolling. And then going back a bit, then when I started my bronzes, Ben Carpenter, who I did the horses for, he used to come to Kenya on safari with a friend of mine, hunting in those days. That's how I met Ben Carpenter. And then one day I was over here on a trip and at a conference, game convention actually, showing some bronzes. Came out here to visit Ben at their ranch house, and in those days Las Colinas was the ranch. And so we're sitting having a coffee, and Ben, he'd had an operation and he was recuperating, but he just said he'd like to have a herd of horses running through some water. Well, he actually said jumping over water. And would I be interested in doing it? So I said, yeah. And I didn't realize how big or what, we hadn't talked about that. And so he was coming to Kenya in 2 months on another trip. So he said, you go home and do some drawings. And when you've done the drawings, I'm coming on a trip, I'll come and look and we'll talk. He said they had to be in real bronze because they had to last forever. And at that point, I thought they were going somewhere on the ranch, you know. I didn't know anything about it. So he said they had to last forever, and I again said to him, have you any idea what that might cost? So Jim came out for one night, all the way from here to Kenya, looked at the model, and Ben said, those are the horses, now you design the buildings around them. I mean, that's pretty good going to do it that way around. Most people build everything and then ask an artist to do something. And so that's how that bit came about. And then I went ahead and made the models. Next thing was half-life size models, and then I personally made the big models in England near the foundry in a studio. and we cast each one as I'd finished it because of the timing of the whole thing. And then we flew them here to the service center near here, and there they did all the levels and elevations above sea level and all the stuff the engineers did. And then we flew them here in a 747 American Airlines, which was quite interesting. And so they were able to lift the horses off flatbed trucks and put them on 8,000-pound concrete bases on each horse into the riverbed. And that was all marked out by the engineers and put them in there. And then eventually put the fountains in, which I designed, and flooded the water in, because I designed the river as well. And basically that was it, but it's a very long operation. It took, including the installation, 8.5 years of my life. And that's all I did. I didn't do anything else. And so since then it's been animals and more animals and working with animals and living in the bush, and it's just pretty amazing existence.